dear. Do you remember those? You don't remember those days. I'm old. I think I bought that album, for goodness sake. It's embarrassing even then. It's Valentine's Day, so how does an attractive young woman with a deep moral sense, a Christian faith and a commitment to family and tradition stay sane in modern Canada? We thought we'd ask our token young person, Faith Goldy Bathos. What I said about you, attractive, young, strong Christian faith, moral tradition, is that all okay?
Yes, that's acceptable, Michael. Yeah. It's somewhat of a chore sometimes. Definitely have to swim against the tide of popular culture. However, I have certain, I suppose you could say, strategies to entering and sustaining healthy relationships.
A chastity belt?
My dad with the chastity yardstick. Yes, well, I mean, part of it is knowing your own moral foundations, having boundaries, and making that clear with the other person. But yes, like I said, it's difficult because you do have to swim against this tide of whether it be pornography or very vivid imagery within, you know, MTV culture, so to speak.
Now, it's very easy to be flippant, embarrassed, I am English, or for people to assume that someone is going beyond what is polite in polite company. But young women, no, look, let's be very candid here. If it's a girl who wants to retreat from society and be religious or very conservative in her own way, it's not a problem. But if you want to be part of a fun scene, enjoy friends and so on, there's a huge pressure. And I know of a young woman at a high school, and actually it was a Catholic high school. If you hadn't lost your virginity by the time you left high school, there was something wrong with you. That's not unusual.
Well, that is not unusual. And actually, it's interesting that you bring that up. I remember in my grade 12 health class, for the very first time in an academic setting, hearing the word abstinence or celibacy. And by this time, I mean, a bunch of my girlfriends approached me and said, Faith, why didn't they teach us about this earlier? It's a bit like late in the game, you know? However, yes, I am involved. I go out to, you know, the very first time actually I think we ever spoke, you called me and I was at a pub at the time. Confession.
A pub or confession? Which one was it? Was it both?
Priest was busy. We're hitting 2 in 1. No, I'm kidding. No, so I'm very much involved in the scene, so to speak. However, at no point do I reject. It's kind of cool, actually, because everyone's trying to be individual and, you know, make their own image in society. And my image is basically one where I do not denounce Christ and I do not denounce the church's teachings. And so in that respect, when a man accosts me in any way, shape, or form, they already have a sense of, okay, I know what I'm going to be dealing with. But there still is this awkwardness of, you know, after I say, well, these are my boundaries, do I apologize to him? And what I find striking is the expectations. I mean, you're on a first date and that's what you want to happen? Well, I don't think so. So, yeah, it's a struggle sometimes.
Men haven't changed. It's what men are supposed to be able to accomplish that has changed. And 80 years ago, 100 years ago, it wasn't that men's, no, thank you very much. No, not until we're married. It was the society told them something. The expectations, and that's a key word, is expectations and assumptions. And guys, most guys, assume certain things. And so a girl is thought to be strange, almost eccentric, if not perverse, if she doesn't agree. What I found is wonderfully ironic here is, of course, it gives so much authority and liberation to the woman. Young girls crying in the washroom, humiliated, virtually abused because they had to go along with that. And did you really want to? No, I didn't actually. Are you kidding? But I mean, if I don't, he won't go out with me again. So it gives you the power in the relationship, but it's thought to be anti-feminist if a young woman says no.
Yeah, well, look here. Celibacy is not a rejection of human sexuality. Instead, I submit to you that it is a claim that there is something more, not just satisfaction in body, but communion of mind, body, and spirit. And with respect to the power dynamics of relationships, especially if you're preaching celibacy, look, so much of culture today preaches self-serving. You know, be self-serving within relationships. I don't say, you know, I choose this lifestyle so I have power over a man. No. Instead, in relationships, and especially, you know, the ultimate relationship, marriage, it's supposed to be entered with selflessness. So the power dynamics don't really factor into my own calculus as to why I execute relationships the way that I do.
It's just a byproduct of.
Yes.
If we could be shown that so-called sexual liberation had led to greater happiness, at least there'd be an argument. But all of the surveys from secular mainstream organizations reveal that STDs, sexuality-related depression, unhappiness, so-called unwanted pregnancies, divorce, have all increased year by year since, what, the 1950s, the early 1960s.
Right.
That would lead you to think, it hasn't really worked, has it?
No, not at all. Au contraire. And like you said, I mean, I went to an all-girls school for 14 years, Michael. The amount of girls that needed consoling during those years because, I mean, they lost their virginity too early or in really sad circumstances. And this really comes from a lack of teaching of how sacred virginity, or even, let's say, a reversion back to celibacy can be, and how empowering it can be and liberating, really.
Now, in Ontario and in BC and in Alberta, actually, these new sex education curricula are being imposed. And the underlying premise is kids know nothing about sex. Unless we tell them there are 15 different genders, we're going to be in real trouble. These kids know a lot about sex, believe me. I've got to tell you, we have 2 kittens, and one of them was in heat the other day, which is very strange. It's rather like men. Their bodies go rigid, they shake a lot, and they bounce off the walls. And my 14-year-old daughter said, "That's one horny kitten." I mean, kids know. Knowing is one thing. Being enabled and encouraged by a teacher is something entirely different.
Do you know that the majority, there was a statistic that the majority of people's first experience with porn within this generation happens at age 11. So
11.
So, I mean, like you said, it's definitely prevalent, and young kids know a lot. And with respect to the Ontario curriculum, look, I was at the PC convention this past weekend, had a great talk with Hudak. The Conservatives are tabling Bill C-14, which is anti-bullying. I mean, no one's pro-bullying, without, you know, the 14, 15 different genders and confusing the youngins.
Actually, I disagree. I think people are pro-bullying. I would say that many politicians like to bully people like you and me. And if you don't agree, we're going to give you a hard time. We're going to take away your scores and embarrass and humiliate you. And you are a credit to your cause, madam. Thank you for being here.
God bless.